But some people believe he took it even further by taking out 6ix9ine and his girlfriend. Now word on the street is 6ix9ine has enacted his revenge after catching Trippie Redd slipping in New York. A whole lot is happening. Let me break it down. Why Trippie had Ariella killed. See, to really understand why someone would target 6ix9ine by taking out Ariella, we need to go back to where this whole mess started. Back in the mid-20s, the SoundCloud rap scene was exploding and both 6ix9ine and Trippie were coming up at the same time. These two guys were basically cut from the same cloth. Colorful hair, face tattoos, that melodic trap sound that was taking over the internet. They were both signed to 10K projects, working together, and seemed like genuine friends who were helping each other blow up. Their collaboration on polls, 1469 and 2017, wasn't just a business move. It showed real chemistry between Trippie's smooth, melodic style and 6ix9ine's aggressive energy, and fans were eating it up. These guys were tight back then, sharing studio time, promoting each other's music, and acting like real day one friends who are going to make it out of the struggle together. But here's where things get really personal. And this is the key to understanding why their beef got so toxic that it might have led to murder years later. The whole thing started falling apart because of women, specifically because 6ix9ine couldn't keep his hands off Trippie's girlfriend. But the smoking gun that shows 6ix9ine's pattern of going after his enemies through their women is right there. In the footage, there's that clip of 6ix9ine with Trippie Redd's ex-girlfriend, Alex. And he's obviously flaunting the relationship to hurt Trippie. This wasn't just about being with a girl he liked. This was psychological warfare designed to embarrass and emasculate Trippie in front of the whole hip-hop world. In the video, you can actually hear them talking trash about Trippie together. This is that crazy.
This is that crazy. This is that same 6ix9ine. Yo, babe, look at
It is 6ix9ine. It's Treyway.
You right, babe.
Now, imagine you're Trippie Redd and you see your former friend publicly disrespecting you by messing with your girl and then posting videos about it online. This kind of personal violation goes way beyond regular beef. It's the type of humiliation that eats at you every single day. In hip-hop culture, where respect and reputation are everything, this was basically 6ix9ine trying to destroy Trippie's manhood in front of millions of people. The thing about this kind of deep personal beef is that it doesn't just go away. When someone publicly humiliates you by going after your woman, that's the type of disrespect that demands payback. His own friends even bring up the incident with 6ix9ine and his girlfriend just to tease and set Trippie off sometimes. I bet 69 would have gave me.
I bet if 6ix9ine would have gave me a wing, I would have wing.
And in the street world that both these guys were connected to payback doesn't have an expiration date. What makes everyone believe Trippie had a hand in Ariella's death is how their beef escalated over the years. Their gang connections added a whole other level of danger. Trippie was running with the Crips while 6ix9ine was connected to the 9 Trey Bloods. These weren't just casual affiliations for street cred. These were real connections that came with real obligations to retaliate when disrespected. The pattern of targeting each other through their women became a recurring theme in their relationship. Both artists seemed to understand that going after someone's girl was the most effective way to hurt them psychologically. It wasn't just about romance or attraction. It was about power, control, and inflicting maximum emotional damage on your enemy. Their beef also played out very publicly with social media battles that got millions.
Everybody said your part of the song was...
But that's your biggest song. That's your biggest song. That's your biggest song. That's your biggest song.
It's not my biggest song.
Yeah, it is.
My biggest songs are Love Scars, Love, Darkness.
The whole world knew these guys genuinely despised each other. By 2025, enough time had passed for him to plan something like this, but not enough time for the hatred to fade. Trippie had built his career and reputation, but the humiliation 6ix9ine put him through early on was still eating at him. Sometimes the desire for revenge gets stronger over time, not weaker. There's also the fact that Ariella had already been targeted once before because of her connection to 6ix9ine. Back in 2018, he was kidnapped by 9 Trey gang members who thought she was one of 6ix9ine and his girlfriends. This showed that people knew she was connected to him and were willing to use her to get at him. The fact that she survived that first incident didn't make her safer. It probably made her more of a target because she had seen too much. When Ariella was found shot multiple times in her car on August 17, 2025, police confirmed it was a targeted killing, not a random crime. The professional nature of the hit suggested this was planned and executed by someone with resources and connections. Exactly the kind of operation that someone like Trippie with his gang affiliations could have arranged. The motive makes perfect sense when you think about it. Trippie couldn't really go after 6ix9ine indirectly. The guy was probably under federal protection after his snitching, had security, and kept a low profile. But going after someone close to him would hurt him just as much while being much easier and safer to pull off. The idea that gangs target loved ones to hurt their enemies is nothing new. It's a classic strategy that sends a message while avoiding direct confrontation. For Trippie, having Ariella killed would accomplish several things. It would hurt 6ix9ine emotionally. It would show that he could still reach him despite all his protection, and it would be payback for years of personal humiliation. The fact that Ariella had been in 6ix9ine's orbit for years, appearing in his music videos and staying connected through social media, made her a perfect target for someone looking to hurt him. She was visible enough that her death would definitely get back to 6ix9ine, but she probably wasn't important enough to have serious protection. When you add up all the factors, the deep personal hatred between Trippie and 6ix9ine, the pattern of targeting each other through their women, Trippie's gang connections that could facilitate a hit, and Ariella's previous victimization that showed she was already on people's radar, it creates a pretty compelling case that Trippie might have finally gotten his revenge. The streets don't forget, and they especially don't forget the kind of personal humiliation that 6ix9ine put Trippie through. In a world where respect is everything and being disrespected in front of millions of people is the ultimate violation, payback was always inevitable. The only questions were when it would come and who would pay the price. Unfortunately for Ariella, she became the answer to that second question. Her death might have been Trippie's way of finally settling a score that had been eating at him for years, proving that some beefs in the rap game go way deeper than music and can have deadly consequences for innocent people who just happen to be connected to the wrong person at the wrong time. But while Trippie's personal hatred gives him a strong motive for having Ariella killed, he wasn't the only enemy 6ix9ine had made over the years. When your own circle betrays you. The story of why Ariella Mejia Polano ended up dead goes way beyond just the beef between 6ix9ine and Trippie Redd. While Trippie definitely had personal reasons to want 6ix9ine hurt, he was just one of many enemies that 6ix9ine had created through his own bad decisions and the snake behavior of people in his inner circle. To really understand how dangerous it was to be connected to 6ix9ine by 2025, we need to break down all the betrayals and backstabbing that destroyed his world from the inside out. The period between 2017 and 2018 was when everything started falling apart for 6ix9ine, but not because of outside enemies. It was because the people closest to him were playing him worse than any rival ever could. These weren't just business disagreements or creative differences. These were deep personal betrayals that created lasting enemies who would spend years looking for ways to get back at him. The first major betrayal came from someone who was supposed to be his closest friend and business partner, his manager, Kafano Shotty Jordan. While 6ix9ine was out there building his career and dealing with his beef with Trippie, Shotty was systematically betraying him in the most personal way possible. And this betrayal didn't just hurt 6ix9ine and his feelings, it created another dangerous enemy who knew all his business and had every reason to want revenge.
When he hears the phone ring, I walk out because now I'm about to get into a deep conversation with Jay to front like, why'd you block my number? But the whole time I just wanted his phone to go through his phone. When I go to the other room, I swipe up, I go to the text messages and I put Sarah, my baby mom's number in. First message I see.
Wow.
Why'd you hang up on me? Call me after you done running. You still with that? Yo, like, call me back.
This wasn't just about infidelity or relationship drama. This was about power, control, and the systematic undermining of 6ix9ine's personal life by someone he trusted completely. The fact that it was happening while he was focused on his music career and dealing with other problems made it even more calculated and cruel. But what made this betrayal even worse was when it started. The affair began at the absolute worst time possible for 6ix9ine. I said, "When did it start?" She said, "Yo."
I said, "When did it start?" She said, "Yo." She said, "Remember that time you called me from jail and said you needed a lawyer? June 16th?
I'm sorry, y'all.
I swear to God. And I called her. She said, Shotty took me to get the lawyer. After we went to the lawyer, he took me to a spa downtown Manhattan."
The timing here is crucial to understanding just how calculated this betrayal really was. Shotty used 6ix9ine's arrest and vulnerability as an opportunity to move in on Sarah, using the excuse of helping get him a lawyer to spend time with her and ultimately seduce her. This wasn't just opportunistic. This was predatory behavior that showed Shotty was thinking several steps ahead about how to gain control over 6ix9ine's personal life. When 6ix9ine eventually found out about the affair and cut ties with Shotty, he didn't just lose a manager. He created an enemy who knew everything about his business operations, his personal relationships, his financial situation, and his vulnerabilities. Shotty had been deeply involved in 6ix9ine's day-to-day operations and had access to information that could be weaponized against him in multiple ways. Having a former insider with that level of knowledge and a personal grudge represented a permanent security threat. But the betrayals in 6ix9ine's inner circle were happening at the same time that his relationship with the 9 gangster bloods was also falling apart. The gang had initially welcomed him because his success was bringing serious money to their operations. But that same success was creating internal conflicts and power struggles. What started as a mutually beneficial relationship was turning into something much more dangerous and exploitative. The problems within 9 were largely centered around the rivalry between Shotty and Anthony Harv-Ellison, who was a high-ranking gang member and had been working as 6ix9ine's bodyguard. Ellison felt like 6ix9ine was making a mockery of gang life while getting all the benefits without putting in the real work or taking the real risks. He saw 6ix9ine as someone who was using the gang for street credibility while not really being about that life. This resentment came to a head in July 2018 when 6ix9ine was kidnapped by his own gang members, the very people who were supposed to be protecting him from his enemies. His account of the kidnapping showed just how dangerous his situation had become.
When he hits the U-turn, we get hit by a car from the back. Boom! I'm in the passenger seat, Jorge's driving. When I see a guy coming with a big gun, just like hoodied on, running towards my door, my heart dropped to my ass.
But it wasn't official till I got locked up because I had to sign papers. His cooperation with the feds created an entirely new category of enemies, not just the specific people he testified against, but everyone connected to 9 who felt like his snitching had brought unwanted attention to their operations. His testimony exposed details about the gang's criminal activities and led to multiple prosecutions that disrupted their business. Every conviction that resulted from his cooperation meant another family affected, another associate looking for payback, another person with a grudge. The cultural backlash against his snitching was just as dangerous as the legal consequences for his former associates. Major figures in hip-hop publicly condemned him, with artists like Snoop Dogg and Meek Mill essentially giving their blessing to anyone who wanted to target him. When respected figures in the culture are calling you a rat and questioning your manhood, it sends a message to the streets that you're fair game for anyone looking to make a name for themselves. This created a perfect storm where 6ix9ine had enemies coming from multiple directions, all with different motivations, but the same basic goal: to make him pay for what they saw as his betrayals. You had personal enemies like Trippie who felt disrespected and humiliated. You had former business associates like Shotty who felt used and discarded. You had gang members who felt snitched on and wanted street justice. And you had cultural gatekeepers who saw him as a violation of hip-hop's unwritten rules. But here's where it gets really dangerous for innocent people like Ariella. When you have that many enemies from that many different angles, everyone around you becomes a potential target. Research shows that people connected to high-profile targets often face increased risks of violence, even when they have nothing to do with the original conflicts. The danger doesn't come from just one source. It comes from multiple directions, making it almost impossible to predict or prevent. The fact that Ariella had already been kidnapped once in 2018 by 9 Trey members showed that multiple groups of people knew about her connection to 6ix9ine and were willing to use her to get at him. Her survival of that first incident might have actually made her more of a target, not less, because she had witnessed criminal activity and could potentially testify about what happened to her. All of these different conflicts and betrayals had created a web of enemies around 6ix9ine that included personal rivals, former business partners, gang members, and cultural critics. Each group had their own reasons for wanting to hurt him, but they all shared the understanding that going after him directly was difficult and dangerous, while targeting someone connected to him was much easier and potentially just as effective. The systematic betrayals that destroyed 6ix9ine and his inner circle didn't just hurt his feelings or damage his career. They created lasting enemies who would spend years looking for opportunities to get revenge. And when that revenge finally came in the form of Ariella's murder, it represented the culmination of all the bad decisions, broken loyalties, and snake behavior that had been building up for years. The sad reality is that by the time Ariella was killed, the question wasn't whether someone wanted to hurt 6ix9ine through her, but rather which of his many enemies had finally decided to pull the trigger. The betrayals within his own circle had created so many potential threats that her death could have been ordered by any number of people with their own reasons for wanting to make 6ix9ine suffer. The multiple layers of enemies that 6ix9ine had created meant that anyone connected to him was living with a target on their back. And when that violence finally claimed Ariella's life, it showed that the consequences of betrayal and snitching in the street world don't have expiration dates. They just keep growing until innocent people pay the ultimate price. When your past catches up, the final price of betrayal and snitching, the streets have a way of collecting debts that you thought were written off. And on August 17, 2025, 6ix9ine's past finally came calling in the most brutal way imaginable. Ariella Lancaster Mahia Polano was found shot multiple times in her car on the Cross County Parkway in Mount Vernon, New York, and the way she was killed sent a clear message. The people 6ix9ine had crossed over the years were still out there, still angry and still willing to spill blood to settle old scores. The police confirmed that her death was a targeted killing, not some random act of violence or robbery gone wrong. This was planned, calculated, and executed with the kind of precision that suggests either professional killers or people with serious resources and connections. The message was unmistakable. Being associated with 6ix9ine carried serious risks, and those risks could materialize at any time, anywhere, from any number of directions. But to really understand why Ariella got killed and who might have been behind it, we need to look at the bigger picture of how 6ix9ine's decision to snitch had created a permanent cloud of danger around everyone in his orbit. His 2019 cooperation with federal prosecutors didn't just save his own life and freedom. It painted a target on the back of everyone he cared about, creating a situation where his enemies could hurt him without having to confront him directly. His willingness to testify against his former associates had earned him the ultimate street death sentence, the rat label that made him persona non grata in hip-hop culture and essentially gave anyone who wanted to target him a free pass. Major players in the rap game like Snoop Dogg, Meek Mill, and 50 Cent had publicly called him out and condemned his actions, which in street terms was like putting a bounty on his head and the heads of anyone close to him. The cultural reaction to 6ix9ine snitching created an environment where violence against him or his associates wasn't just acceptable, it was almost expected. When respected figures in hip-hop are publicly questioning your manhood and calling you a traitor, it sends a signal to people in the streets that touching you or your people is not only justified, but might even earn you respect and credibility. But the danger to Ariella didn't come from just one source. It came from the intersection of all the different enemies 6ix9ine had made throughout his controversial career. The personal beef with Trippie Redd that we talked about earlier represented one possible motive for her murder. The betrayals within his inner circle, including his falling out with Shoddy and the 9 Trade kidnapping situation, created other categories of potential threats, and his cooperation with federal authorities added yet another layer of danger that made everyone around him a potential target. The online speculation about her death immediately focused on these various connections, with social media posts asking questions like, did they kill her because she was 6ix9ine's girl? and comments suggesting that being close to him was essentially a death sentence. The harsh reality is that multiple theories about her murder were plausible because 6ix9ine had made so many enemies from so many different angles. What makes her death particularly tragic is that she had already been a victim,